Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to Esquire Coaching Radio, where we help attorneys achieve unparalleled personal and professional success. And now here's your host, Ann Jenrette Thomas.
Welcome everyone to Esquire Coaching Radio. It's such a pleasure to be here with all of you today. As you know, Esquire Coaching is a national coaching and consulting firm that's dedicated to helping attorneys achieve extraordinary whole life success. And to that end, we discuss the full range of topics from business building to getting a job to work-life balance and everything in between. Today, we have a very special guest who's going to be talking to us about business building strategies for the success-minded lawyer. If you want to succeed as a lawyer in today's economy, you have to think about business development. It's not enough to just excel at practicing law. You have to know how to bring in business as well. And frankly, unless you have an MBA, most lawyers don't naturally know how to build business. But today, we have Anson Augustine from Marcum LLP, one of the largest independent public accounting and advisory services firms in the nation. He will share with us essential business development strategies that all lawyers should cultivate to continuously fill their pipeline. Anson is a director in the New York City office of Marcum's Assurance Group. He works closely with publicly traded and privately held companies in numerous industries, providing services related to SEC compliance, as well as M&A and complex accounting and reporting issues. In addition, Anson participates in several of Marcum's internal efforts. As a member of the University and Career Development Committees, he helps advance the careers of professional staff through mentoring, organizing training sessions, and serving as the lead instructor for a variety of continuing professional education seminars. Welcome, Anson.
Thank you, Ann, and thank you for having me as a guest on the show and also for your gracious introduction.
Oh. I'm really excited about this topic, and especially, what we like to do is learn from multiple industries out there on what their business development strategies are and see how we can parlay that into the legal realm. So before I dive right in, I just want to remind our listeners that if at the end of this call, we will give you an opportunity to ask Anson any questions that you might have. So simply call 347-838-8719 and press 1 to be in the queue. All right, Anson, so can you tell me more about Marcum LLP?
My pleasure. So, as you mentioned earlier, Marcum is one of the top 20 accounting firms in the country. We consist of about 1,200 professionals, about 140 partners, and have more than 20 offices throughout the United States and in China, from East Coast to West Coast. We're one of the largest firms in the New York area, in the greater Philadelphia area, and in the New England area. And we offer a number of different professional services ranging from traditional accounting, auditing, tax services, public company compliance, valuation, litigation support, forensic accounting. There are several niche practice groups that I work in here, and lastly, we're also the 9th largest auditor of public companies in the nation. So that's a practice that I spend a significant portion of my time in.
Oh, that's great. And I know I mentioned your role, but can you just describe it a little bit more detail?
Absolutely. So I'm a director in the firm's New York City Assurance practice. I focus most of my time on the public company group, the SEC practice group here, but I also work with several privately held and also companies going public. I've been with the firm 10 years. Prior to that, I was a senior accountant at a small firm in Westchester County, New York. And since I've been here, I've actually completed my MBA. I know you mentioned the MBA program before. So I completed that at Fordham University in New York in 2006. And I also have a master's in human resources from Hofstra University in 2011. I work primarily with small and microcap companies here, providing auditing, SEC compliance, mergers and acquisitions, and due diligence consulting, complex accounting matters. I also serve as the chair of the firm's efficiency committee, audit efficiency, and I also participate in the firm's training committee as well.
I love it.
I'll also mention that we publish a newsletter also, and there's a link to our website, which I think you have on the top right-hand corner of the website is some sign-up information for those wishing to take a look at our newsletter.
Oh, that's great. Now, one of the reasons, just for all the listeners out there, one of the reasons why I wanted Anson in particular to talk about this is as we were connecting and networking, Anson was describing some of the wonderful programs that Markham does to ensure that they are building business consistently. So, Anson, many attorneys feel that their primary objective is to service clients. Why should an attorney worry about business development?
Sure. And I have an answer to that. I just want to proceed just by saying I'm an accountant, and I think that, a lot of what I do, probably, 98% of what I do here with respect to business development can relate to an attorney. I mean, we all service our clients. We all want to help our clients. We all want to help them grow. So the first thing is to make the issue of growth a priority. Again, you want to be able to control your own destiny as a service provider. Maybe it means that you're networking, you're getting out there and growing business in a particular area that you wish to focus on. In general, I mean, I think accountants, attorneys, service providers who are proactive do better than those who are passive. And and also I think there's a good opportunity to just make new contacts, and you never know who you'll need to speak to down the road. So I think those are some of the reasons why both attorneys, accountants, and other service providers should focus on business development.
I really love that you said the notion of being proactive, and I also think you really hit on something important, which is this is a marathon. When you said you never know when a relationship where that might lead you, I think attorneys in particular need to recognize this process is a long one, and not to just think about quick deals necessarily. So thank you for sharing that.
It's my pleasure, and like I said, I've been with Markham for 10 years, and when I started here, we were about 140 people. Now we're about 1,200 people. One of the reasons for that is it's a group of entrepreneurs here, a group of people who make business development a priority. So, again, I think any attorney listening that, wants to make a name for himself or herself, just be an entrepreneur. Another thing that you can do to be proactive.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what we encourage at Esquire Coaching too. You have to have an entrepreneurial mindset, even if you are an associate at a law firm. Still got to think that way. So, Anson, now what has Markham done to foster a culture of business development to help yield such huge growth in 10 years?
Sure. So you mentioned before that you coach even associates about the importance of business development, and we do the same. We teach business development at all levels. So not just for the senior partners, junior partners, or those wishing to become partner, but we try to teach even the lower level accountants, the entry level accountants, that it's very important to network, whether it's an alumni association or through social media or through networking events. A number of different ways to do it. But whatever level you're working at, it's clearly important. Here, we encourage professionals to network, to meet prospective clients, and also to be creative about how you do it. Maybe it's attending a networking event for an area that you specialize in. But we whatever it is, we stress it at every single training event that we offer here.
That's fantastic. And I love that you mention creativity as well. I think I might want to explore that a little bit in a minute. But let me first ask, so what, in your opinion, should an attorney do to prepare for a networking event?
Sure, and when I was preparing for this, I basically sat down with a clean sheet of paper and I said, what would I do if I was going to a networking event tonight? And I came up with a few bullet points that I think I would do if I was going to an event tonight or tomorrow or whenever the event would be. The first thing I would do is I would pre-qualify the event. We're all busy. We all have tons of things to do, whether it's personally or professionally. So the first question I try to ask myself is this an appropriate place for me to spend my time? Is it an event that I feel I'll get something out of, whether it's learning something or meeting new people, or is it an event that maybe I should have one of the other people at my firm attend? That's the first thing I do. Next thing I do is I ask myself, who at the event do I want to meet? A lot of these events that I go to circulate attendee lists prior to the event. Some of the larger associations do that. So what I try to do there is take a few people that I want to meet from the list and find them. during the event, and maybe before that, do a little bit of research, know their organization, know people attending. I guess it's similar to knowing your audience when you facilitate a seminar. But take a look at bios. I try to do those types of things. I also try to search. On these days everything's available online. So LinkedIn, if I know a particular person's going to be there, maybe I look at Google and just see or look at LinkedIn, see if we have any similarities, any people that we know in common. A couple other things I do is I make sure I bring business cards. It goes without saying, probably for you or Ryan, but when we teach that at an entry level, you'd be surprised how many people don't think of that. We also try to tell people to get there early at these events, because you go to events sometimes that are a couple of hundred people, and it's hard to meet people, but when you get there early, it's much easier to meet people before the room actually gets very crowded. And the last thing I'd recommend is when we go to an event, we try to find the sponsor or the host or our board member, someone in charge of the event, and tell them what we're trying to accomplish. I went to an event a couple of weeks ago in downtown Manhattan, and I actually saw the person at the door who was the host. And he asked me this question. He said, "What can I do to help you?" And I said, "I'm looking for X, Y, and Z. Can you, help me meet that person?" And they're very helpful. So I try to recommend that too. Just ask.
That is such a great, you don't often see that where sponsors or hosts are actually coming up to you and asking, but that's a great way to continue to build relationships for the sponsor as well. So, okay, that's great. So one thing I wanted to also just piggyback off of, your decision, the first thing you talked about was pre-qualifying before going to a networking event. And I just want to reiterate that this has to be in alignment with whatever your business goals are as a lawyer. And so that's how you can that's how you can determine how to pre-qualify. Would you agree with that statement, Anson?
I would absolutely agree. Absolutely. It should be in line with your goals. Who are you looking to meet? And again, I think with business development, if you're the more focused you are, the better it is.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you. Now, you did a great job of talking about preparing. Do you now have any suggestions for what to do during a networking event?
I do. For someone that maybe hasn't attended many networking events or maybe isn't comfortable in that environment, because there's a good percentage of the population that doesn't like getting out there and socializing and meeting people. There are people that maybe are just very, very good at what they do, but haven't really networked before. What I tell those people is bring a buddy. Bring somebody that is in your shoes, maybe from your firm, and maybe split up the room. One negative thing there to watch out for is you don't want to spend a lot of time talking to only them. But it's someone that you can, for lack of a better term, commiserate with. If you're having some trouble getting out there and meeting people, you can circle back to that person during the event once or twice and say, "Hey, do you have any suggestions for me?" The other thing I'd recommend is before you go, to be prepared to give a two-minute elevator speech. And for those of you that don't know, I'm sure you know, Ann, what an elevator speech is if you're stuck in an elevator, you should be prepared to start a conversation with your name, your law firm, your title, a brief description of what you do, but I think most importantly, an interesting detail or fact about what you do, something that will make that person come back to you and ask a follow-up question. If I go to an event and tell people that I'm an accountant and I work for a CPA firm, I think that's great. But if I say I'm an accountant, I specialize in assisting small and mid-sized businesses, there's a difference. So hopefully it would lead to a follow-up question.
Absolutely.
Yeah. The other thing
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, that's okay. The other thing I'd recommend is, at a networking event, you're going to meet lots of people, and I think it's important to realize when to move on to other people. To your point before about I guess aligning this networking process with your goals. If you meet someone and a nice person, but may not be the type of person that you want to do business with, you can always take that person's business card, follow up another day, and move on, and just try to meet some more people. You circle the room, you meet as many people as you can, and through introductions, you learn about potential links that you have in common by speaking about a particular hobby or something that you can actually do to help them and solidify that connection.
Oh, that's such great advice. And so graceful, Anson. You know, what a great tip to be able to say, oh, you know, may I have your business card, and I'll circle back with you in a nice way and a polite way to be able to continue to work the room. One thing I also wanted to just add to what you had said about the elevator pitch, I always recommend that you add a results statement. I think people really resonate when they can see how you help people. You know, so when you were saying about you help certain types of businesses, like what do you do? Do you help them grow their business? You help them manage their finances better? And I have found that whenever we encourage our clients to do that, they get people who are more interested. So it's just to add on to what you've already shared.
Great advice.
So now that a person has attended a networking event, like an attorney has gone, maybe they've gone to the Bar Association, they've met a few people, what's next?
Well, you know, that's I think the challenging part, and because I think you know, we can all find a networking event and go to the networking event and meet some people, wind up with 50 business cards for people that we maybe potentially work with in the future. But the tough part is what happens after. And I think the key to summarize it is really follow up and follow through. Right. So if there's someone you meet and you know you're in a particular area of law and you met somebody that you have some synergies with, set up send an email, you know, maybe send a LinkedIn invite or something, and see if there's an opportunity for a follow-up meeting, a meeting where you can more closely speak to that person in a one-on-one environment, and go from there. You also want to be able to over time develop that reputation and build this relationship. And once you build it, you solidify it. You have to think of really, the way I look at it is, how can I help this person, right? And I think people sometimes think of business development as, you know, you give me a client, I'll give you a client, but I think it's more about helping people. What can you do to be remembered, to be distinctive? And I think the more you do to help people, you know, it'll certainly come back and help you in the future.
Can you say more about that? How can you achieve your own goals by helping others achieve theirs?
Absolutely. So, you know, the first thing is you learn about potential links that you have in common. So I'll give you an example. I have a friend of mine who's an attorney who was looking to do more work with companies that are looking to go public, so initial public offerings. And a couple of days after I spoke with him, I met a person who was a small business in New York looking to take his company public. And it's a company that we're in the process of, you know, speaking to regarding their audit services and tax services. So he was looking for an attorney, and he was looking for an attorney who has experience with IPOs.
Exactly.
So, again, the potential client that's looking to go public hasn't even retained us yet, but you know, I was able to help him and put him in touch with an attorney, and that attorney was able to help him and put him in touch with another provider, an insurance provider. So we've all helped this person, and I think I think he appreciated it, and I'm fairly confident that when he's ready to go public or needs a tax return, corporate tax return done, he's going to call us.
I agree with you 100%. I see it over and over again. I don't know if it's good karma or what. It definitely works.
It is. I mean, I always look at it like, it's important to listen to people. And, I think when people start out networking, they realize that soon that it's not always directly about selling. It's about building relationships.
Absolutely. Let me just take a moment here to remind our audience, if you want to ask Anson a question directly, please call into our line, 347-838-8719, and press 1 to get in the queue. That's 347-838-8719, and press 1 to get into the queue. All right, Anson. So, there's so many attorneys and accountants out there. Why is it important to differentiate between being better and being different?
Well, I think the first thing is to realize that there are hundreds of people exactly like me or like our listeners that are trying to do what we're trying to do. So it's important to differentiate the attorney or the accountant, and to show the world why you and your firm are better than others. Maybe it's something that you do better than others. One thing I tell people about our firm is that we're the largest auditor of public companies that hasn't had any comments from the PCAOB and the PCAOB review. So I tell people that all the time because it's something that separates Markham by doing quality work. And for attorneys, it's the same thing. What out there do you have experience with that you can separate yourself? There are thousands of attorneys out there, but what do you do better than the others?
So when you evaluate that for yourself, do you essentially do a SWOT analysis or, a strengths and weaknesses analysis of yourself before you can make that determination?
Well, I do that analysis, but I also try to understand the audience. Also, if I'm going on a proposal and I know a little bit about what they want, and I've had a couple of clients that have come to me recently because they were unhappy with the service that they were receiving from another smaller accounting firm, whoever they might be. So, I think in that case, I show people why we service clients great, and this is why. Everybody could say it, but let's show you exactly why we do that.
Oh, that's
and how we do that.
Exactly. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Now, tell us a little bit about what your own personal target clients or target referrals might be.
Sure, thank you. Well, I guess like I just said, everyone needs an accountant, right? Every business out there needs an accountant. Most lawyers over time are asked, hey, do you know a good accountant for me? I've been with Markham for 10 years, and I've seen firsthand how our firm provides superior client service. And again, we've talked about the importance of business development for the last 20 minutes or so. But one thing I didn't say is it's also just as important to service your existing business well, because a lot of our referrals come from existing clients because they're happy with the service that they've received. So with that in mind, I'm looking to meet just smaller businesses, companies maybe looking to upgrade their accounting firm. And, for accounting firms, they use them for financial statement audits, tax returns, or due diligence in an acquisition, or just companies looking to go public. There aren't many auditors as accounting firms because we are the two public company work.
Oh, those are great. And, I want our listeners to take note of that. I was able to ask Anson what his personal target clients and target referrals were, and he had an answer. Anson, you probably have seen this happen a lot where you might ask someone, oh, what can I do for you, or how can I help you, and they're fumbling around for what they might be able to ask of you. Have you seen that happen?
I have. I absolutely have. And in training classes that I teach here, I try to use that as a mock scenario in a way, because when you ask someone, what do you do that separates yourself, or what are you looking for? They don't always know the answer to that off the top of their head, and it's something that I try to keep up and try to train here.
Absolutely, and it's so important. So, for all the lawyers that are listening, it's so important for you to be prepared. Be prepared by knowing your competition, knowing what sets you apart, and knowing what it is that you need at any given moment, so that as you're engaging with people, the people that you talk to, they might not necessarily be your potential client, but they could be a great referral source for your potential client. So Anson, you provided a phenomenal example of what to do right.
Thank you. And there's one thing I wanted to, I'm sorry, one thing I wanted to add I didn't mention before, I just realized I'm looking through my notes. One thing that I think attorneys see and accountants see a lot of too is that they're very busy. They're busy servicing their clients. So I try to make this networking and business development a priority. Every one of us has to have lunch, or maybe we need coffee to get through the day or something. So I try to use that when I'm, telling other people that we can always make time. If we really want to be proactive and to do better, we can always try to make time to fit in business development.
That is so true. And I think I see this particularly in the law firm environment where folks are so busy focused on trying to make their billable hours and really servicing the clients that they'll skip lunch and even skip any notion of business development altogether, thinking that it's better to just service the client. But as you know and I know, because I've seen this happen over and over again, when you only focus on servicing the client, you put yourself in a very vulnerable position, a feast or famine position, so to speak, where you might be okay for a little while, and then when the work dries up, you're scrambling. So let's, what you're saying about just making sure that there's opportunities, utilizing things that you naturally have to do. You need to eat, you need to get coffee, making that a way to do business development is an excellent idea.
Thank you.
Anson, you had mentioned earlier about being creative in your business development. What are some suggestions that you have, or maybe even things that you've done or seen other people do well about being creative with business development?
Sure. So again, I think it's easy to just look through magazines and find networking events, but what I've tried to do here is find specific events that will help me, or maybe just try to put people together. A good example of this is I'm a Yankee fan, and I have season tickets, on my own. So a few times a year, I try to get together with, maybe a potential client and a banker and maybe an attorney, just to try to put people together. So that's something I've done that's a little bit outside the box, but just to try to introduce people.
Yeah, and what great value. Think about just like what you did with that potential client who was going for an IPO, that all these introductions, you're adding so much value to that prospect, to that potential client, and people do remember that. So, again, I love that the way that you're being creative. In fact, one of the clients that we've worked with, they were a dancer originally, when they were younger, and love theater, and that has become the way that they now network and market and bring something different and memorable to the prospecting and business development experience. So I love that.
That's great. In our firm, there's one other example I want to give you quickly if I have a minute. Our firm also does something that I think is very creative. We host what we call the Markham Microcap conference, and we'll be on our third conference in May in New York. And what we do there is last year we had about 1,600 attendees and about 120 presenting public companies looking for funding. And we basically put the investors, introduce the investors to what we call the undiscovered companies, microcap companies. So again, with 1,600 people and over 100 companies, it's something that most accounting firms wouldn't even go anywhere near things like that. But we've done it to think outside the box and be creative and see what we can do to put people together.
You have the right attitude. You have the right mindset for business development. It's always being of value, always figuring out how you can add value to your prospects so that you're memorable, you stand out, and you're seen as someone that is a solution-oriented person instead of just give me your business. So that's excellent. I mean, really, kudos to you and your team at Markham for all of the great business development. And I mean, look at it, folks. The numbers don't lie. That level of growth in a 10-year period is extraordinary.
Thank you.
So Markham, Anson, you're not going to believe this, but we are almost out of time. So can you let us know how people can reach you?
Absolutely. So you can email me, and I don't know if you've given them my profile, but would you like me to repeat my email address?
Yes, please.
Sure. You can always email me. It's the best way to get in touch with me. It's Anson, A-N-S-O-N, Augustine, A-U-G-U-S-T-I-N-E, at Marcum LLP.com. Also, our website is www.marcumllp.com, and under one of the headers is a management section with my profile there. So I'd be more than happy to
recommend them.
Thank you, and I'd be more than happy to speak with anyone if there are any follow-up questions or I'd love to meet some of you, hopefully.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Anson, for being here. You shed so much, you gave so much great information, great tips, and what a valuable insight on how to do business development the right way. I want to encourage all of our listeners to keep this conversation going. You can join us on our any of our social media sites. All of them are available through our website, www.esquirecoaching.com. So thank you, everyone, and we will talk to you next week.
Thank you, Ann. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Anson.